So I figured as long as this month seems to run on a theme of how much money TJ can spend and how obscure can the toys get, I might as well throw this guy in for good measure. This is a toy I've been meaning to review for a long time now, and I figure, why not? What you're looking at is Webdiver Daitalion. If you've never heard of Webdiver before, it's a toy line that was supposed to replace Transformers in 2001. It didn't work, it got canceled, Transformers came back. We have been going strong ever since. But since then, these toys have gained quite a legacy of being very quirky and unusual, very different brand of transforming robot. And Daitalion is no exception. Though, well, he is kind of an exception, but we'll get to that later. What I want you to focus on now is, what the heck is he? I will be honest, I've owned this toy for years, I've done a little research, but honestly, I still cannot figure out what exactly he's supposed to be. Now, most of it points to being a submarine. Okay, I can see that. He's got propellers in the front, he's got anchors on the sides. But part of me really sees an old-school Final Fantasy airship in him, too. And I mean Final Fantasy when it still had dignity, that is. Either way, it is a very cool, very regal-looking ship. This is what a king would design his airships or submarines to look like. A lot of really well-intermixed royal red and gold detailing. And a little bit of silver thrown in, too. Not only molded plastic in the front, but painted on the back as well, adding to this turbine effect that you have going throughout the engine section. Now, what I wanted to point out, again, you have the anchors on the side. Like I mentioned, they are adjustable, just in case you want to have them raised or lowered. That's one of the main details that throws me off over what the heck vehicle this is. And the other one is these missiles on the sides, which look more like torpedoes. They don't fire out. This is just them in storage. We'll get to shooting them later on. I'm getting to a lot of things later on. You can still throw them at your enemies if that makes you happy. You know, they will die one way or another. Here we have the main section. A little bit of silver on top. A little bit of red all the way through it. The cockpit is what amuses me. Look how tiny that is. I mean, seriously, take a look at the whole thing again. And now, imagine how big he is if he's a one-seater. Imagine how much bigger he is if that is where an entire crew is supposed to sit. This thing is freaking enormous. I mean, absolutely gigantic. I actually love that little detail just to help convey that this guy is absolutely massive. One thing I also wanted to point out is a trait that Webdiver toys have, which is this circuitry detailing. Now, Webdiver takes place in cyberspace, so in order to convey that, the toys have some molded-in circuitry, which you saw here as well. It's always painted in some contrasting color to make it stand out, and here it's a very nice metallic blue. I love these little detailings, and you can find them all over the toy to convey that this guy is of a digital nature. Really adds a unique touch to his aesthetic. You can see a crest there on his wing, too. All the Webdiver toys are known for having a unique crest all their own. Excuse me if this starts getting a little bit heavy. This thing is absolutely massive. Now, speaking on the engines again, you'll note these in the front don't turn all that well. But the same is not true in the back, where the engines actually spin quite freely. Well, freely if parts aren't in the way. Very nice. It's also very flat in the back, so you're really not seeing anything that resembles the robot mode yet. Actually quite like that. And I'll also point out on the top, maybe this is just me, but between this protruding red section, these folded wings, and these sections in the back, kind of looks like a bird sitting on top of him. Maybe that's just me. I just thought that was worth pointing out. Also, I should also point out is that there are two companion figures of very confusing name structure, Pegasion and Ligaon. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. What I do know is that if I had them, I could combine them on those little tabs on the underside of the vehicle mode. I don't have them, so I can't. But bringing them up does allow me to point out the strut in the front, which allows it to, stay balanced, because it doesn't really have landing gear. It just has these two little nubs it rests on and this. But if those two were intact, they are thoughtful enough to let the strut extend and actually allow you to still properly balance him. It's actually a very cool detail. So, all in all, really brilliant figure. I love these underside guns, by the way, too. Fully rotational, always moving up and down as well. This is what really makes me think airship, because while a submarine could probably have these too, it has torpedoes. Okay, so why does that need guns that go downwards? This is obviously for bombarding stray villages and evil castles. I can imagine, can't I? Just because I want a transforming Final Fantasy airship. Jeez, don't judge me. And there we have Daitalion. I think I forgot something. I forgot this little guy. I call him little. He's about the size of a scout transformer. I'm a little lost to find out what his name is, since I can't research this stuff in Japanese, but what I do know is he has a very Egyptian vibe to him, especially in that helmet design. You can see a lot of little details, especially in the eyes. I mean, look at that. That is straight out of Egyptian artwork. You can see the same circuitry details molded into his crest and likewise painted, though it's a little bit more of a greenish hue than it is on Daitalion. A ton of gold all throughout those shoulder guards. And he seems to be wearing a championship belt as well. You can see some nice detailing in the midsection as well, and some extra on the arms. And going down to the legs, nice white paint job, giving it a bit of an armor feel. More spikes. Got spikes all over. And that's pretty much him. Now, he doesn't have much articulation. His knees bend, his hips go forward and back. Not really anything you can do to pose them. His arms can go outward, and that's pretty much it. That's the limit of the articulation. What I do know that he can do, however, is he has this little button on the top of his head. If we press it down, his crotch flashes. Okay, stop that now. You're creeping everybody out. Now, most of you probably figured out what the point of this guy is. We fold his feet down and legs all the way back, and we fold up these shoulder guards. He'll form the head. Now, I just lock him down in place, and now we have a fully fledged Daitalion. And, I can put him against the inchboard like this, but really, it is so hard to convey just how huge and grand this toy is. I mean, you need a size comparison to really tell you just how much toy there is here. There we go. That should please just about everyone as far as size comparisons go. And don't just look at how tall he is compared to the rest. Look at how freaking wide he is, too. Now, I need to review the rest of him, don't I? So, yeah, I gotta clean this up now. Hang on. There, all cleaned up. And I've switched to the black side of the inchboard just so you can see this guy in better relief. But point made, he is a gargantuan toy, as tall as a leader class transformer and with about twice as much bulk. Now, the transformation is deceptively simple, but it does bring out some new details and quite changes the profile of the toy. For instance, we can now see a lot of extra detail on the chest, including a little bit of chrome paint out there on the middle section. More of that circuitry line that I love so much. And he has turbine boobs. I don't know why. Oh, but it does convey the whole airship slash submarine slash whatever you actually want him to be. I've given up trying to figure out what he is. He just looks really cool. Let's take a look at the head mold too. Here we can see a very nice helmet shape has formed on him. All that gold detail from the little guy, the headmaster wannabe, has gone into making a very ornamented helmet. And you can even see a bit of a blade at the top, more akin to a Roman helmet. We can see that light-up crotch has now become his head crest, which, if I press down that piece on top, will also make it blink. So, there you go. You actually do have a bit more of a sense to it in this mode. Really do dig it. Also on the back, you'll note that the wings on top have now spread into 7 metallic blade wings. His design, his aesthetic, is overall based kind of on a seraphim, like a warrior angel type. Yeah, I can see that. And of course, I can also see the Alexander summon from old Final Fantasy games. You know, that's the big whole regal look to him. But seriously, he is one of the stockiest and bulkiest figures I've ever owned. I mean, everything on him is absolutely massive. Now, unfortunately, the articulation does suffer a little bit for all of this. His shoulders do rotate forward and back, heavy ratchet joints in doing so, and his biceps do rotate. But you can see also he does have a waist articulation from transformation, and I'll raise his arm to show you that his hips do move outward to a degree, and they can move forward and back. But you have to bend the knee in order to actually do it, and it doesn't go that much because of the kibble in the way. Not that he's going to be doing much posing for how big he is. That's pretty much all there is. There's a little bit of ankle rotation, no tilt, it's an older toy, so not much in the way of posability. It's unfortunate, but I don't know, I can kind of see what they were going for. You can actually raise his abilities with his 2 partner figures. They can also form heads on him as well as weaponry for his arms. However, again, I don't own them, so I can't show you. What I can show you is his main action feature, which happens when I click this little button on the bottom of his chest. It's not the Matrix, it looks like a giant gear. What it actually is a hidden weapon compartment. Now is when I can actually take one of these missiles and lock it into place. So he is armed. That does fire a ridiculously far length. There is a little blue button on the back of his head, or just behind his head rather, if I can actually get it in the light. Oh, there you go. There it is. If I hit that, missile flies forward, gets lost in the ether, and I never see it again. So I'm going to gently remove it now. Speaking of, there is more we can do here. Like, for instance, this thing is just tabbed in, so I can actually remove it. No, it's easier if you actually have the head disengaged before you do that. Now, from here, I can unfold this all the way and rotate these around to form a gear-designed axe weapon. Almost all translucent blue plastic, looking very cool. His hands actually do open up to accommodate this, and there's a peg hole for that little peg there. So, open up, slide in. You can actually find the peg, because his hand's so big, it's hard to actually get a good view of it. And Axe is now equipped. Close this up, and we can weaponize him a little bit. Always cool. Again, his partners can also enhance this to form other weapons as well. Now, to be fair, I will point out my one failing as a reviewer, and I'm sure someone in the comment will point it out. There is an on-off switch on the back of his waist. Now, I put fresh batteries in him, I turned it on, I looked everywhere for buttons or speaker openings, anything, and he doesn't seem to have any of that. There is a tiny little light here on the front, or at least what looks like a light. Now, the main feature of Webdiver was that all the toys could send out an infrared signal that the main toy, Gradion, who I already reviewed, could read and would respond to in the form of a little digital game that you could plug into your TV. Now, I think the on switch is just to activate that. I could be wrong, I will admit. Or, that just could be a little decorative piece. I don't know. I can't really test it out, so I can't be sure. So I'll just be upfront, it's a guess. But it's not why I love this toy. I love it for its amazing design. I love it for its amazing aesthetic. I love it for its size and its bulkiness. I love it because it is an absolutely grand toy in every sense of the word. If you're on the hunt for it, keep in mind, it, along with Weberion, are the holy grails of the Webdiver line. It is not going to be cheap. And as you've seen, as toys go, it is somewhat limited if you don't have its partner figures. I'd recommend it if you can find a collector liquidating his collection that'll get rid of it cheap, or if you just happen to find some amazingly lucky deal on it. The prices it goes for on eBay, to be fair, really aren't worth what you get. But if you find it for a price you're comfortable with, you are in for an incredibly unique toy, the likes of which we will probably never see again.